Hey, everybody. Welcome to Away Games, a Chicago Cubs podcast with a couple New York comedians talking about the Chicago Cubs. Myself, I'm one of them. Is that how people talk? Myself, I'm one of them. I'm Kevin McCaffrey, and I am here with, this is the OG lineup, myself and Adam Mamawala. What up?
Yes, myself, the other one.
Yeah. Myself, the me, and myself, the other one.
Hot start.
Yeah, hot start. A start like the Cubs were having a few weeks ago.
Yes.
But I believe, like the Cubs, we can turn it around at least back to 500.
So. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, you and Ken had a nice hang last week while I was indisposed.
We did, yes. And I think we should start by saying last week we gave you credit for a very good optimistic prediction, which I think was the Cubs going 5-1.
You called it. You called what I called. I forgot I called it.
Yeah, you were right for the last one. And when Ken and I finished up, I said, "How do you think these next 6 go against the Dodgers and the D-backs?" And Ken gave the acceptable 3-3, and I went for the 4-2, and I am happy that I was right.
Look at that. We're as long as the most optimistic one of the two people on the podcast is right from here on out to the end of the season, I feel like the Cubs should be in good shape.
I think so too.
Yeah. It would be weird if we just both went into a week like, I think this is an 0-6. I'm getting that vibe. Just no wins for a while.
Yeah, I feel like no matter how down I get on the team, like even early on when things looked bleak, I still wasn't willing to expect them to keep being bad forever.
No. Yeah. I think that is both a reasonable baseball feeling and also just a good place to be as a person, you know?
Right. And I think it's also like it defaults to our old Cubs fan settings of like, well, they're not mathematically eliminated. So
right. They're 4 back with 6 to go. Shit can happen, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Shit can happen, even though it literally never had up until that point. Yeah. But yeah, now it has. This is it. So it's been a nice, relatively like a 4-2 week. You'll take that pretty much all the time, especially when the Dodgers are involved.
When the Dodgers are involved, and also playing in Arizona against a team who not only was hot, but the Cubs have never played well there.
Yeah, I guess it's weird because I don't know the stats on it, but I mean, I guess it's just, you know, the playoff series sticks in my head from from one of those 2 good years in the late aughts, one of those sweeps. But yeah, it is, and also that's where Schwarber died the one time, so it's got some bad memories in that that outfield for sure. That I really do think it's the this week we got a feel for that thing where one run in one game can really change your feel about the week as a whole, even though it really is a genuine coin toss. I mean, you go 15 innings and that game could have ended any number of times.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, and it's so interesting how, like, our feeling right now would be so different if Chatwood comes in and walks somebody with the bases loaded, or if they leave Maples into, like, basically any way in which they lose that game, especially after having the bases loaded, no out situation where they don't score, You're looking at a real lost opportunity.
And bases loaded, no out with the people they had coming up. Rizzo just a terrible at bat. Baez doesn't get it done. It definitely felt like if you cannot get one run here, then that is not a win of a game. And then Tyler Chatwood, Ken Schultz predicted on our, I think it was, right, in our season preview, he said there's going to be a game where Tyler Chatwood really steps up in an important time. We're in April.
Had more than one. Yeah.
There's been 2. There's been 2 Tyler Chatwood games already.
Yeah, and let's not forget the double.
Yeah, exactly. He came up, he doubled, and he had, it's one of those things where when a pitcher is good at hitting, the announcers never can't say that.
Right.
You know, so it's we've all heard that Tyler Chatwood, he's a good athlete, fields his position. You know, he can handle the bat, but the way he took that at bat was so impressive to me.
Oh yeah,
too.
Before even the hit, that was a great at bat.
It was one of the better at bats that the Cubs had at least in extra innings the whole time. He spit on a couple of balls, fouled a couple straight back, and he had a good vibe about himself. I guess one of the things is he's childhood best friends with the pitcher he was hitting off of, Matt Andrees.
They're like the only 2 guys from their high school who've made it, and they both pitched the 14th inning.
Exactly, they're the 2. Yes, and one took the win, one took the loss, and those are the only 2 guys who, as you said, who have made the majors from that high school. And Chatwood was in Andrees' wedding, maybe retroactively cut out of some photos.
Exactly
at this point, but yeah, ripping an oppo double, and then my God, when Tyler Chatwood is on, it is something to see. Like coming out.
Well, that's what we were always dreaming on with this guy, and it finally seems like we're starting to see it.
And I'm really impressed with him. When you hear about guys going to the bullpen, you tell yourself, oh, well, he should be able to throw a little harder there, but it's not always that simple,
Right.
Chatwood seems like it is that simple. Like he, as a starter, he's 94 to 97, and then, just touching 97 occasionally. But out of the bullpen, I mean, he's just sitting 97 and touching 98, 99. It is an impressive thing to see.
Yeah, it's very impressive, and I think as much as we criticize Joe sometimes for babying pitchers, and granted he didn't have a ton of other options, it has to feel incredibly good for Chatwood to be brought into a bases-loaded situation with the game on the line.
It is, yeah. It's insane that Tyler Chatwood is one of the walkiest pitchers of the modern era, and to be brought in when a walk loses the game. Also, I mean, that just tells you about Dylan Maples' control.
Right.
It's almost like a baseball roast joke, where it's like we're bringing in Tyler Chatwood to improve our command. Thanks, Dylan Maples, appreciate it. But he came in and did it, and it really is. As you said about the babying thing, it's like I can't think of a better confidence boost for Chatwood than throwing strikes exactly when he needs to and just blowing a guy away like that.
Right.
So,
yeah, absolutely. By the way, I did look it up. The Cubs' overall record at Arizona is 33-49. So I guess that's not. Again, it's one of those things where like they were a bad team for a long time, so that's probably not that surprising if their record is like that anywhere. But I did want to see if that was if I was onto something there.
Well, I think you are onto something because, yeah, sure, the Cubs record 33-49 at Arizona, and the Cubs were bad for a chunk of that. But Arizona was an expansion team,
Right.
So they were very bad for part of it too. And Arizona hasn't been a dominant franchise. They won the one World Series. They made the playoffs a couple of times. But no, I would say that is a little weirdly bad for the Cubs.
Yeah.
So I think you're right on that.
But I mean, between the game on Sunday, which, like we said, could have gone either way, but obviously involving the storylines that we've heard now with Zobrist saying, don't start me, start Bote, which I absolutely love.
Great.
And then coming up with the big hit that was very reminiscent of his Game 4 hit against the Giants in the NLDS. That's kind of what it reminded me of, that little like buggy whip down the line.
Mm-hmm.
But for him to come through in that way, especially after being the kind of teammate he is and saying, you know what, I'm not hitting right now, and Bote just hit the longest home run by a right-handed hitter in baseball this year. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I didn't see that, but that's great.
That first home run, it hit off the facade in left center. That was 476 feet.
Oh my God, that's all the exit velo you hear about Bote being channeled perfectly, and I enjoyed how he knew it. He didn't do anything disrespectful, but watching him drop the bat, and then Arizona acting like a bunch of bitches and pegging him later too. But yeah, man, that was a real ass shot by Bote.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, between Sunday and then I think honestly that middle game against the Dodgers last week might be the game of the year with the two 3-run homers in the seventh.
See that I was in the air during that game for the most part. I was flying, so I didn't see it, but I landed.
I was also in the air during that game, but from celebrating.
Sure, you were just levitating.
Yeah,
that's a better way to go. And because that does feel like the kind of game that even beyond this year, but last year too, that the Cubs just wouldn't win. I mean, last year, one thing we broke down, I think we got to earlier than anyone else. It ended up a storyline by the end of the year, but we were pointing out pretty early that basically the Cubs won. We're generalizing here a little bit, but they basically won every game they scored 2 runs in. Like they just, if they lost, they got shut out or scored 1.
Yeah.
And so it seemed they've really been a totally fine or completely unwinnable offense with very little in between. And that game felt like it was going to be all right, 0 runs again. You know?
And as it turns out, the next day was kind of like that. I mean, the 2-1 loss with Lester starting was a little bit of that, like, scoring feels impossible again.
Right, with Almora putting the one on the board off Jensen with 2 outs in the ninth. Yeah,
exactly. Which almost is like, why even make us feel like this?
Right. What are you doing here? Yeah.
All you're doing is ruining Jansen's ERA.
Yeah.
Hurting his feelings.
Yeah.
But Yeah, that game, I completely agree. I think that's the sort of game where when you're down 3-0 at that point with somebody cruising, I think Buehler started that game. You're just kind of chalking it up to, well, I guess, it just wasn't our night tonight and we're not going to put anything up there. And the fact that all happened with 2 outs is the coolest part.
6 runs with 2 outs, and Javy, in Javy's case, 0-2 count, too.
Man, talk about missing your spot on an 0-2 pitch. I don't know if you saw that, but holy crap.
Yeah, well, he was going down and away, right? And it came
it just hung one.
Up and in at a part of the plate where it's also hard to hit that ball. Like, that's not, he totally missed the spot, but it's not the easiest ball to turn around like that. And I mean, that is one of the weird storylines early in this year is that, man, so Javy's better, huh? He's just actually notably better than he was last year, which is pretty cool.
Well, I think it's a little bit like Yelich, where you just naturally expect there to be some regression because it's like, how can you have that much better of a season from guys who finished 1 and 2 in the MVP race? But Javy does look better, and I think at this point, especially given the start that Brian and Rizzo have had, I don't think it's going out on much of a limb to say that Javy is the best and probably most important player on this team.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think we were talking about that not on the pod, but we were just talking about in one of the text chains or something recently, and that it feels weird to say that is Javier Baez the best player on the Cubs, but it shouldn't be that weird. I mean, no one has more physical talent than he does.
Yeah. But did you did see the clip of him avoiding the tag running to first, right?
Oh yeah,
that's unbelievable.
Throwing on the brakes and diving around. Yeah, I mean, it is. There's so much to say. I mean, it's a thing Hayward said about him too, where he said, you can talk about Javy all day, but you just have to see it. He said something to that effect. Where it is. He does so many weird things. It almost seems hack to talk about, but it is like nobody else does these things. I mean, if you do like 6 things in a week that nobody else does, there's a lot of other baseball players. There's a lot of other baseball plays, and as an individual player, not even involved with that many plays per game. Man, it's fun to watch, and it's awesome when the guy is just when he is getting better, and he's getting better in a way. If you look at some of the numbers where it's intentional, it's not just a streak. He is hitting the ball the opposite way more than he ever has. Well over 30%.
He's taking pitches he never used to take. His at bats are largely very good. And it's nice that the whole Javy being Javy thing, that's like a positive. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times when there's a phrase like that, like Manny being Manny, it refers to him diving to stop a cutoff throw or doing something like, or peeing in the outfield. Like Javy being Javy means doing something exceptional. Yeah. And I realize that this comparison might be a stretch, but it harkens back to I don't know about you, but I had like every Michael Jordan VHS highlight tape in the world when I was growing up.
I'm impressed that you did, being your age. You're more of a DVD kid than I had.
No, I'm not. I know you feel like the older brother, but you're not that much older.
Yeah, thank you.
I remember there being a quote from Magic Johnson in one of those videos where he was talking about what makes Jordan so extraordinary is that like he might be 0 for 25 in the game, but you're going to keep watching because that 1 for 26 might be the best shot you've seen in basketball. And that's kind of how Javy is. It's like even in games where he's struggling, you can't take your eyes off of him because he might do something that is something I've never seen that before. That play running to first. I mean, I've seen people avoid tags, but that specific play, I've never seen that before.
I've never seen the play at first.
Thousands of hours of watching baseball.
Right. I've never seen the play at first before, and we've seen people avoid tags, but we've never seen anyone do it with the consistency that Javy does, and we've never.
He stopped like a running back.
Yeah,
he's like the way frankly, it scared me watching his knees do that. But like the way he brought himself to a complete stop and then avoid that was unbelievable.
Yeah, and then reaccelerated, dove around, and I mean that is really the thing. You see Javy do all these high impact plays too at high speeds, and it is just like, Lord, protect his knees and his wrists and all those joints. Protect the hamstrings. Let us not lose this guy. Also, and God, it feels weird because it's like we're a Cubs podcast. We have to talk about it. I guess I don't want to really.
But Russell?
Yeah, because that's the thing too. Is if I mean, you don't want Javy to get injured because Javy's a beautiful thing and he's the best player on the Cubs right now, and those are good things to keep. I also don't want Javy to get injured because I don't want Addison Russell to have more of a like more of an excuse to play, kind of, you know?
Right.
Because there is, I mean, yeah, there is no other primary shortstop.
No, and he's eligible to be called up on Friday, and I hope they don't do that. But doesn't it seem like it's trending that way? That it's like the easy decision that everyone's saying, like, oh well, we'll call him up and send Zagunis back down, even though the Cubs are being very non-committal about like if and when they're calling him up. Doesn't it kind of seem that way?
It does to me. Yeah, it does to me. I mean, they're not. The thing is, you can option him. Ian Happ's in the minors. I'd rather have Ian Happ on the team than Russell as a baseball player, even beyond, you know, one being a piece of shit and the other one being a really nice guy.
Happ is not doing that well in the minors.
He's not. No, he's not. He's doing a little better recently, but his one problem, and one we talked, you know, everyone knows about it, and we talked about it in the season preview thing too, is just weirdly, he
can't hit balls in the strike zone.
He is the worst hitter. He is the worst contact man of balls in the strike zone in the major leagues last year. That seems like a bad problem, and that is a problem he's still struggling with. And that is a thing I don't know how fixable it is. I don't know, but he still has been an above average offensive contributor in the major leagues when you put everything together. Anyway, I think with Russell having options, I don't know why you wouldn't just keep him in the minors. From a baseball perspective, this guy had, you know, he was good in 2016, and since then, not really. You know, he plays good defense. That's it. And again, that's, you know, they could have replaced that for almost no money with Jose Iglesias, who signed a minor league deal with the Reds, who basically just is Addison Russell as a baseball player, without any of the off-field baggage. I don't know why. To me, I don't see anyone else he displaces. Looking around the infield, we're having Bryant play in the outfield a lot already, you know, because of how deep the infield is, with David Bote looking like for real and looking like a great extension too. You know, Bote, Zoe, and Descalzo doing great. Javy. I mean, there's just not room in the infield for a guy who has not proven himself to be an actual hitter and is a problem of a person too. Yeah, I just don't really see it. But Russell has been playing second base in the minors, so it seems like the plan is if they do call him up,
you can't move Javy off of shortstop.
No, it would be so blindingly stupid.
Why would you move your best player off of the position that he has been playing at this whole season, especially for that person? And yes, if Russell's back up and Javy needs a day off, okay, sure, Russell starts at short. And I think it's very hard to be objective about the whole thing, because obviously we feel very strongly about not wanting him on the team. I think in a world where to call it a rehab assignment, it just bothers me in and of itself.
Right. Rehabbing from what? Oh, being a piece of shit.
Trying to be rehabilitated as not a piece of shit.
Right.
But in a world where everything about Russell as a baseball player is the same and none of the personal stuff exists.
Yeah.
Then I probably want him on the team more than Zagunis.
Yeah.
In terms of ceiling, in terms of being a defensive replacement, I understand why people who are thinking about it purely from a baseball perspective say, well, yes, there is a spot for him. Zagunis is not doing much for you. He is of no value defensively, and otherwise he's basically a destitute man's Tommy La Stella off the bench.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a good point to bring up too, is La Stella has 7 homers and 5 strikeouts this year right now, where it's like
he's also hitting like 180, so he's not doing that.
Right, no, he's only a power guy. It's really weird to hit 180 and never strike out and hit a bunch of bombs. That is such a strange...
Slugging 1,000, Tommy La Stella.
Yeah, exactly. But right, and that is what one of the last pieces I wrote for BP Wrigleyville, RIP BP Wrigleyville, was about La Stella and how I very much enjoyed that being one specific role on this team. The 25th man who just parks at 25th. And that, yeah, you're right. That is basically what Zagunis is now, except it's less useful than Tommy La Stella was. And that's not Zagunis' fault. He took his first walk recently, which is great since that's his main quality. He's been basically a 400 on base guy throughout the minors. And, you know, I think it's also hard to be super patient when you're not getting any at bats. But I think what you're saying makes sense. If this is a playoff roster right now, you would put Russell on ahead of Zagunis with no other considerations but baseball. But yeah, I don't, unless Javy needs a breather or is hurt, I don't really see a place for him in the lineup.
Well, totally. And I think that it also, you can't think about it purely as a baseball decision, because I'm not on the Cubs. I'm not in that locker room.
Right.
But I have to imagine that some of these guys, especially the ones who we think of as being very high character people, are not particularly excited about sharing a locker room with Addison Russell.
Yeah.
Because I certainly wouldn't be.
Yeah, I wouldn't be either. And it's hard to say, because we haven't heard a lot of these guys you talk about it. Really, honestly, the one who talked about it in the clearest terms was Ian Happ. So, it's
now he's been shunned.
Yeah, exactly. So it's weird, man, but it's not fun. It's not cool. I don't and it's not.
Well, when you think about, and we tweeted this, but when we think about how likable this group has been, and how like I've really come to enjoy watching these guys play, and it's only a month into the season, because of how bad things looked at the beginning and the way they've turned it around, and the job Madden has done managing, and things like Sunday where a dude like Zobrist, who is a Cubs legend,
yep,
comes to Madden's office and says, it's not right for me to be in the starting lineup. I want Bote to start. Mm-hmm. It's very easy to root for this team right now. And if it's selfish, it's selfish, but I don't want to have to question rooting for this team.
Right. No, and we've talked about it before, and I guess we'll wrap up this storyline on this, but baseball it's an entertainment product. It's, we've gotten tweets too where people are like, oh, don't look to baseball, to athletes for, moral leadership. That's not what we're doing. This is an entertainment product, and it makes me be entertained less. It makes me be entertained worse. I feel worse about this thing that baseball isn't that important unless it's important to you, And so it does affect my enjoyment of this stuff. And there's no law anywhere that says you are required to put bad people on your team. This is not it's a privilege, not a right to be, yeah.
Completely. And that's why I think you and I both disagree with the whole, like, oh, you just have to think about it as a baseball decision, because as fans, that's not the only thing that we consider. I'm sure Mel Gibson makes good movies, but I don't want to go contribit to watching them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's,
also, maybe he doesn't make good movies.
I think he kind of doesn't anymore. But at one point, he did. Yeah, I think that still stands. And separating art from the artist, we can still enjoy the Grand Slam Addison Russell hit in 2016 without enjoying Addison Russell anymore. I still enjoy Remix to Ignition, but I'm not buying any R. Kelly shit from here on out either. So yeah, thanks for being the R. Kelly of our fucking baseball team, Addison Russell, you piece of shit. All right.
Let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on. You know what's cool?
We'll be right back.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's a, you know what's been cool is the starting pitching's been pretty cool.
Yeah, I would say the starting pitching has been very cool. I think I've been extremely impressed by Quintana. He's somebody who sticks out to me.
He's ace level, right?
He gave up the 3 runs on, I guess, Sunday. But let's talk about that Darvish start. Did you get to watch any of that?
No, I was also traveling for that.
Okay.
I was doing a lot of driving on that one, so I listened to some of it, but yeah.
Well, I think the most encouraging thing about it is that it started out like so many other Darvish starts where you're like, oh my God, like he had thrown 50 pitches through the first 2 innings and was really laboring.
Right, that's the Texas start. Yeah.
Exactly. And it was one of those like, yeah, he is for sure going to get pulled with 1 out in the 4th inning.
Right.
Like I could not have been more certain of that watching the first 2 innings. And then he settled down and looked really, really sharp and made it through 6 innings, which means that he pitched 4 innings where the total number of pitches were like,
I think it was 60. Yeah. 60. Yeah. He ended up with 110, I think. Yeah.
Exactly. So in some ways, that almost is more encouraging to me than – it's almost like looking at the Cubs. Like, yes, I would rather that they were, 20-6 or whatever.
Sure.
But the fact that they went through what they went through and have made it to 14-12 right now makes me feel good about that team, the same way that watching Darvish struggle for 2 innings and rather than default to the old settings, figure it out and get through 6 innings giving up 1 run that makes me feel even better than if he had just been dominant the whole time.
Yeah, because I think it puts in your mind that, things can get bad and can get better. Adam and I are both stand-up comics, which really, it's part of the premise of the show, but it doesn't come up a lot. We are really just talking about the Cubs. Here we're not doing bits, really. But it is like, if you, from a comedian's perspective, if you've been with performing for an audience, it got weird, and you got him back, or you have to follow someone who just tanked the whole room, and everyone's mad or sad, whatever, and then you get them from zero to something. It's like, oh, okay, so any situation I walk into, I have the ability to pull these people
right,
back,
and I think we would both agree that that's a lot of times is more satisfying than just killing in a really hot room.
Oh, totally. And we're both, this is unhelpful. I think we're like Darvish in this way. Yeah, I'll compare us to you, Darvish. I think we both have mindsets that might not be sociopathic enough for prime comedic success. And I think, where we don't just walk in everywhere and are like, if it's bad, it's everyone else's fault. We're people like a little introspective that way, especially compared with some of our peers. And I think that's something with Darvish too, is he's a guy who you can tell is really like sensitive and thoughtful. Mm-hmm. And that is not always great for athletics. He is a thoughtful guy who cares, and that can really spiral you sometimes,
Well, and weirdly, I would say the other comparison is that you and I only do interviews in Japanese.
Yeah, this is the first year. If you are still listening to us after last year, we appreciate that, because it was entirely Japanese podcast last year. And now we're like, you know what? We can speak English. Of course, we're better at Japanese, but we'll try to really expand our horizons this time. But yeah.
Yeah, but I think I would agree with what you said, but I think when people have brought that up about Darvish and saying like, he should be more intense on the mound or more, show more emotion, it's not for everybody. Not everybody has the same process, and I think to attribute any of his failure to like not caring enough is not really fair.
No, if anything,
I'm not saying that you're suggesting that, but
no, you're right, and I think we'd both say, if anything, it's probably the other thing where the guy does care, and sometimes caring too much can get in the way, and that doesn't make you a head case. That just makes you someone who cares, And I think for all those reasons, that's why this was such an encouraging start. Is it ended up, like you said, same old script. It seemed like Darvish can't find it in the first, and then he found it, and it was great. And then he was the Yu Darvish who finished second in the Cy Young voting. It was like, okay, yeah, that guy's here, cool. He didn't even have to peg anyone in the nuts at 99, Yeah,
exactly. There was no Brinson nuts occasion this time. Yeah. But, Hendricks obviously kind of regressed a little bit back to some of the problems that we'd seen from him earlier this season.
Hanging fastballs, yeah.
Exactly, before that last start. And again, I know you don't like the narrative, but it is a fact that you do have less margin for error hanging an 88-mile-an-hour fastball versus 98.
You do, but but you also look at any other pitcher who throws hard and see the margin of error is I mean, it still exists. It's just different. It's like, I don't care if you hit an 85-mile-an-hour fastball for a homer or a 98.
I guess my point is that Hendricks doesn't have the ability to miss spots the same way that Chapman could, aim for the middle of the plate and wherever it went, it was such movement on it that it didn't matter. Like Hendricks is is a guy who's so reliant on hitting his spots that when that is off, that's when he struggles, which is it's a very simplistic thing to say, but
no, but it's true. It's if you make a pie chart of the things that are most important to a pitcher, like the part of the pie chart that is command is larger for Hendricks than it is for a lot of other guys. But so it sucks to see that he sort of went back to the problems in Arizona a little bit. But earlier that week, he had just about the most dominant start we've seen a Cubs starting pitcher have this year too,
right?
With double-digit strikeouts, just mowing people down. No one knew where the ball was going. So hopefully he gets right back to that shortly, because otherwise, man, Q looking like an ace. Hendricks flashed the ace, and Darvish in the
Hamels has been largely good.
Hamels has been great. Yeah,
he's other than basically like one bad pitch to Delano DeShields accounts for most of his,
that dinked off the foul pole, like off the outer edge of the foul pole. So really, your game of inches, friggin' hacky
thank you,
dad
Joe Carter.
Quote. Yeah, exactly.
Well, and Lester looked great coming off the injury for his first
Yeah,
start,
he looked perfect. He deserved more than he got for sure. So so that's all great, and I think it's great to see the kind of ceiling that this starting rotation has. If everybody's going, it's a top end starting rotation. It's an if, but it is a championship caliber rotation if these guys are.
Well, and I think the other thing that's encouraging is that on the days where it's not a championship caliber rotation or somebody has an off day, this team also has the ability to put up 10 runs.
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
If those things line up and maybe Hendricks or whoever it is gets knocked around and gives up 5 runs in 5 innings, that doesn't necessarily mean the Cubs are going to lose every one of those games.
Right. And especially 10 runs, the 10-run ability if Rizzo and Bryant are back at all. And
Bryant is starting to turn the corner, it looks like. Schwarber still concerns me, but he's had a couple, he had that multi-hit game over the weekend.
Mm-hmm. Right.
He still looks off to me. Schwarber still looks like he's thinking too much, which I know is a easy thing to say sitting on a couch talking about the Cubs. But.
Sure. Yeah, but those are, it's like those 3 guys are such high ceiling guys if they can get right that they can run away. And in terms of one guy who's carried the offense thus far, Wilson Contreras has been amazing, but has been a little less amazing in the past week, maybe because he's catching every fucking inning again. Right. Like, do we? I know it's.
Davis did finally get a start, but it's been really tough. And I think you said this last year, and it probably, as much as Javy is the most important player on this team in terms of who would be worse to lose. If Contreras went down right now, the Cubs are fucked.
Right. There's no one close to, you're losing a couple of wins with Contreras. There's no near replacement catcher. Wilson Contreras has been the best catcher in baseball this year. So that alone, you're losing the best catcher in baseball as far as what he's been up to this point this year. And in terms of from him to value over replacement player, well, I know that's in WAR is a stat, but the Cubs. It's also like it's more tangible because value over replacement player, there's a baseline for replacement player. But in the Cubs case, there are specific replacement players we're talking about. It's it's not some nebulous idea. It's value over Taylor Davis. It's value over, wins above Taylor Davis.
Well, and the fact that Caratini was playing so well early on makes it all the more frustrating.
Yeah. And hopefully he gets, healthy relatively quickly. But also, I think the thing is you do have to give. I think you got to start Taylor Davis 1 out of every 5 games right now, because we saw last year Wilson wore. I think a lot of it was wearing down, and a lot of it was just he wasn't right in the second half. He just he just got out of his head a little bit.
Yeah.
But he caught way more innings than any other catcher in baseball, and Joe Madden said that wasn't an issue. I don't understand how that's possible. The numbers are the numbers. He worked more at a very difficult position than anyone else.
Well, and especially as somebody who's so high energy and is always jumping up out of his crouch constantly. And as much as maybe the Cubs have told him to not do that as much, it's still pretty innate for him. I think the thing about Davis that's interesting is that he's the one who caught Darvish on Saturday. And a lot of people are saying, well, it's only, hopefully 3 or 4 more starts until Caratini's back in the mix anyway. Mm-hmm. Who knows how much of Davis starting was responsible, if at all, for Darvish pitching well. Mm-hmm. But screw it. Let's let Davis catch Darvish.
100%. I totally agree with that. I'm a big fan of just, pick one of the pitchers and work the other catcher with them in general. It's just a good way to, keep the catcher fresh and keep the starting catcher a little fresher on a regular basis, and let the catcher and that starting pitcher work together a little more and get to know. I don't think that I see that as a good thing. That would also be what I would like to see. Might as well. Let's give Contreras a breather and let Davis hang out with Darvish a little bit.
It's so funny to me, Taylor Davis, I guess we're talking about comedy more than we usually do on this podcast, but Taylor Davis to me is like the guy who's like the road dog but loves it. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
He's like his ceiling is always going to be like headliner in like not so great clubs.
Right, B and C rooms.
Are you kidding me? What's better than hotels?
Yeah, I love Dayton. You've been in the Oregon District in Dayton? Oh, my God, they got this movie theater that serves booze. Yeah, it's just, I
get to play baseball. I get to hang out with my buddies. I don't need to be in the major leagues. Who cares?
Yeah, he seems like a great guy, and he's put up good offensive stats throughout his minor league career.
Yeah.
I think
he's not bad. It's just like he's the classic AAA lifetime player.
Yeah, true, and it's nice to see him making some actual money in the majors right now.
Oh yeah, I hope he saves it.
Yeah, and did a great job catching Darvish there. Yeah, so hopefully he gets a couple more chances, and Wilson gets a little more chill out time too.
Totally. Well, let's. I don't know if there's anything else you want to talk about, but if you want to jump into a little prediction, I'm good with that. What do you think?
Yeah, sure. Let's take a look at what we got here. So we've got we're recording.
Well, there's two. Yeah, go ahead.
We're recording this Tuesday before the first Seattle game, even though this will drop Wednesday morning. So we've got this week coming up. We have 2 in Seattle, day off, and then 3 in St. Louis, or 3 versus St. Louis, excuse me, and then 3 versus Miami. But I guess
4 versus Miami.
4 versus Miami. That's right, but only 2.
So 10 game homestand, which is really nice.
That is cool. But yeah, only 2 of those. So 2 of those Miami games will be before our next podcast. So I'm gonna say split in Seattle, 1-1. I'll say you win 2 out of 3 against St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to 3-2, and then beat Miami both times, for Christ's sake. So I'm going to say 5. Am I saying 5-2? 5-2. Yeah. That's
I can live with that.
Yeah. Is it you on the same?
Yeah, I mean, I think, generally, especially, I feel like those like interleague series on the road, especially like the Mariners have been pretty good. It would be hard to imagine winning both of those games.
They've been good, but they've been weird.
Yeah, I haven't seen the pitching matchup for tomorrow. Tonight is Cole Hamels versus King Felix, but obviously King Felix is not King Felix anymore.
Right. Tomorrow is Lester versus Gonzalez, Marco Gonzalez, who is 5-0. What the fuck?
Yeah, so that does feel like a split. And my mindset, obviously, it's not too surprising to say, well, I want the Cubs to win every series. But when I look at the upcoming matchups, it's like St. Louis and Milwaukee and Chicago, you definitely, if you can take 2 out of 3 in both of those series, you're thrilled.
Mm-hmm.
And then Miami, at the very least, you need to win 3 out of the 4.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I think a split versus Miami is a lost series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And April is April, but the Cardinals do look good, and at this point, I think I guess there are 3 games. The Cubs and Brewers are tied in second, 3 games behind, and St. Louis looks pretty solid. So It would be very. If the Cubs can win that series, or if they can somehow sweep the Cardinals, that would be quite lovely.
Be beautiful. Yeah, I mean, these are because not only are you pocketing wins, but you're pocketing losses for them. It's every game with these guys is a 2-game swing. So
yep.
It's an interesting week though. That St. Louis series, we haven't seen them yet, so that's going to be
right.
That will be exciting and hopefully good.
Hell yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, follow us at AwayGamespodcast on Twitter and Instagram. Follow us and talk to us there. Tweet at us and post comments. Slide into our DMs. All those things. And awaygamespodcast@gmail.com if you want to talk to us about anything. Agree with us, yell at us, whatever you want to do. We'd love to talk about it. Anything else, Adam?
Nah.
No. Go win.